Okay, thank you so much everyone for being here. And well, it is a great honor for me to be able to present this presentation called Redefining Animal Alterity in Fantasy Literature, Animals and Anthropomorphism in Philip Pullman's His Dark Materials. So, before starting this presentation, I would like to ask you a favor. I would like you to imagine that let's say that for an instance, you can take a knife and cut through the fabric of time and space and travel to parallel universes. This is not actually an original idea. This has been done many times. And this is what actually His Dark Materials is about. Take it that you, for example, as I said, can travel to parallel universes. You may find in some of them beings and people, even people similar to us, but chances are that in other universes we also may find creatures that challenge what we understand as intellect and what we understand as humanity. And that hypothesis will instill the following questions in most of our minds. What does it mean to be human? So, it is to a post-human and post-anthropocentric analysis of some of the creatures of His Dark Materials trilogy and its many universes that I will attempt to answer such questions in order to reflect on fantasy's ability to deconstruct anthropocentric relations between the human and non-human beings. So, the theoretical framework I have worked with in this presentation encompasses the basis of posthuman theory developed during the 1950s, 60s, and 70s. From the civil rights movements to the 21st century authors such as Rosi Braidotti, the main tenets of the posthuman philosophy in general have included the posthuman and the machine and the cyborg dilemma and the posthuman and the animal realm. But ultimately, posthumanism, we could say, is focused on decentralizing the human of the understanding of the universe, on rejecting anthropocentric power dynamics. So, we also have to take into account Francesca Ferrando's posthuman philosophies, which is a work that offers an outstanding and fantastic revision of what posthuman foundational bases are as a whole. This author, Francesca Ferrando, establishes posthumanism as an umbrella term in which other sub-movements such as transhumanism, anti-humanism, and post-anthropocentrism are embedded. One of the most important conclusions of Ferrando's work is that humanity is performative. She believes that the condition of being human has been conveniently manipulated and extrapolated to a very specific dominant discourse throughout the entirety of human history. We have a lot of historical examples of this, with slavery and desegregation of many social groups, be it through racism, gender discrimination, or any kind of discrimination. Being human has never been a fixed category. So, if to Francesca Ferrando's, if to Judith Butler's theory, gender is considered to be as performative, to Francesca Ferrando, what we understand as humanity or being human is also considered performative and cultural as a whole, performative and cultural. So, the emancipatory movements of the 60s and 70s also saw the rise of eco-criticism as a critical discipline, this time much more concerned with the anthropocentric manifestations of violence perpetrated against the natural environment and the intersectional post-colonialism embedded in this development. Every time the human exerts anthropocentric violence against the natural environment, it also exerts violence against the colonial subjects or inhabitants of that natural environment. Now, so together with eco-criticism and post-human critical approaches, we seek to find in the humanities a change of paradigm in the rise of the 21st century issues and concerns, but specifically in the 21st century climate crisis and how we approach the natural environment, what are we doing wrong, and perhaps conceiving alternative ideas of thinking about our own environment. So the analysis of these thesis primary sources, which is Philip Pullman's His Dark Materials, and specifically Northern Lights and the Amber Spyglass, the first and last installments of the trilogy, intends to exploit the potential fantastic narratives and their ability to uncover the anthropocentric power dynamics between the human established as the self and the non-human animals or non-human beings in general established as the other, and how the depiction of Northern Lights demons and armored bears, or also called Panzerbjörn, and the Amber Spyglass Mulefa conform or defy anthropocentric binary opposition. As one of the many disciplines of eco-criticism, animal studies are also crucial in the deconstruction of anthropocentrism. So now let's delve into the analysis of these creatures. So I will start by summarizing what the demons are. In Light of Aqua's world, which is the first universe we are presented in this trilogy, we find that the human is inherently connected to very curious and ambivalent creatures. So the demons are basically animal embodiments of our own personalities, of our own identities and our own instincts. So the demons are extremely connected to the humans in the sense that if one disappears, so does the other. Basically, the first approach I wanted to investigate regarding these creatures is that not only do Pullman's demons transcend the archetypical depiction of the animal companion in traditional fables and fairy tales, but they also break human exceptionalism by recreating this intimate bond between the human and the non-human creatures of their world. Claire Parkinson's theory in animals anthropomorphism and mediated encounters states and describes that anthropomorphism, that is ascribing human traits and personalities to animals or to non-human beings, entails a specific negative connotations, which in the end they are just conforming and re-establishing anthropocentric discourses. However, she also finds in anthropomorphism as a literary tendency the possibility to reimagine new kinds of relationships between the human and the animal, taking advantage of the creative freedom fictional and fantastic narratives offer. That is, Claire Parkinson's basically stating that if anthropomorphism has always been used to reinstaurate and confirm anthropocentric dominant power, we can also use it as a tool to give voice to post-anthropocentric ideas. Contrastingly, instances of human animalization in the realistic novel, such as the controversial case of Jane Eyre's description of Bertha Mason, a female colonial subject, as a literal clothed hyena, demonstrates that for the most part, in the realistic novel, animal descriptions evoke a condemnatory role with regards to the other, be it through racial or gender discrimination. That is another way of how the human is separated from the animal. Now, whereas the realistic novel is prone to reproduce anthropocentric power, fantastic narratives have the potential to subvert them. On top of that, Northern Lights' severe children subplot, represented by the character of Marisa Coulter, which is basically summarized as eliminating the demon from the human, cutting the link between the human and the non-human creatures of this world, which entails drastical and very, very ethical and moral threats to the laws of the first universe we are introduced into in this trilogy. Consequently, Northern Lights demons deconstruct human exceptionalism by putting the human and the non-human on the same footing. However, despite the possibility of developing a post-anthropocentric reading of the human and demon bonds, it is also interesting to consider an oppositional reading based on the confirmation of anthropocentric tenets. So, this has been very interesting to me because these creatures can be used to both, depending on what reading we apply to them, challenging anthropocentric bias or confirming it. Now, on the same note, the depiction of the Svalbard race of intelligent armored bears follows the same school of thoughts. Taking into account the cultural and social representations of animals, Claire Parkinson also states that anthropomorphizing them so as to extend human privilege to them negates their own empowerment as non-human animals, in this case, polar bears. On the same note, Yorick Bernison is one of the Svalbard armored bears that serves as the best example of what non-human creature empowerment can represent in not only in his dark materials but also in fiction and popular culture as a whole. Contrarily, Yorick Bernison is what Simona Micoli in Towards a Posthuman Imagination in Literature and Media would call a subhuman, which is a non-human creature conscious of an eternal inferiority that attempts to mimic human anthropocentric power by rejecting its own nature. I found it interesting how, within the rules of Northern Lights fantastic narrative, anthropocentric power takes on both post-colonial and eco-critical issues by means of the armor-bear dichotomy. On the other hand, we also find the Mulefa, separated from every kind of human interaction because these creatures belong to a separate and utterly new universe in which the human does not exist. These elephant-like beings' evolution led them to develop a sentient intellect that challenges that of the human by exerting a crucial codependency with their own environment. As the mere embodiment of nature itself, the souls and cultures of the Mulefa transcend those of humanity. And I couldn't help but to introduce some quotations about these creatures, which I found very, very interesting in the topic of challenging what humanity is, because if we understand that humanity is only attached to intellect and sentience, and we are presented with this kind of imaginary creatures that have language, culture, and their own means of transportation. As you can see in their legs, like very small wheels made of seed pods. And, well, that is, to me, this part of the Amber Spyglass was fascinating. And the encounters between Mary Malone, which is our human point of view, to the Mulefa, is also very interesting. She approaches them by asking them, "What are you?" And the creatures start mimicking her and almost making fun of her, demonstrating a very high intellect as well. So now the most important insights that the Mulefa offer to this project is the eco-critical aura of these beings, because as Mary Malone states in the book, after living with them for a few days, she states that these beings weren't human, but they were people. She told herself, it's not them, they are us. She sees herself reflected on them, but what she doesn't know, and she later realizes, is that by creating a very important relation of codependence between the Mulefa and their natural environment, these creatures are able to transcend what we normally understand as humanity. Without the Mulefa's attention, the trees would all die. each species dependent on each other. So, consequently, I would like to state that Philip Pullman's dark material serves as an instance, as one of the many instances of fantasy literature's post-human and eco-critical potential, especially in the climate crisis of the 21st century. The possibility of conceiving alternative realities not only for the human benefit, but also expanding to an ecological scale, agrees with Ursula K. Le Guin and J.R. Tolkien's literary theories on fantasy literature, which are to be reckoned with as major secondary sources in order to conceive this genre's true transformative and optimistic potential. Accordingly, these renowned authors state that the fantasy genre's insightful contributions to reality are only achieved by rejecting the allegorical representations of their narratives. In order to unearth fantasy's transformative potential, readers have to come to terms with fantasy's own rules. Conclusively, I would like to finish this presentation stating that the fantasy genre has, as well as many other genres, the ability and the potential to light the spark of change necessary to create, not only to create a better world, but also to introduce the new ways of conceiving and therefore treating our own environment in a planetary scale. So these are the conclusions we arrived to, and this would be the bibliography, and this would be the end. Thank you very much. This has been a pleasure.
All right. Thank you so much. Again, another very interesting paper, very thought-provoking.